Okay, let's try this again. So, good morning and happy Friday. I hope you had a great celebration of love yesterday. If we have not met yet, my name is Jessica Bawag, and I am a speech language pathologist at Fluent Children's Therapy and a former special education teacher. And I love to just pop in here every Friday morning to give you some tips and tools about things that you as a parent can do at home to help your child develop their speech and language. This morning is going to be the last in our series. We've been talking about over the past few weeks about children with autism and strategies that you can use and how you can get your child identified and how to build your tribe and your team of support around you. We know that having a child with special needs, any type of special needs, but especially a child with autism, can be very challenging, and it'll be a long journey, but just know that you don't have to go it alone. So today is our final video of this series, and we are going to be talking about strategies that you can use at home to help your child, specifically with some speech and language. We'll throw in a little bit behavior there because it's all kind of tied together, and it's going to be very practical. I'll show you a lot of my favorite things to use that I use both here in our clinic, that I've used when I used to go into people's homes and help coach parents in that setting, as well as what I used to use as a special ed teacher. So strap in, I hope you're ready to get going. And these are a lot of these things that you can either print them from Pinterest or the internet. You can kind of get creative and copy and paste your own pictures into Word, print them out. We've got a real cheapo just lamination machine that doesn't cost a whole lot, and you can make them so that they'll be a little bit more durable so that they can last, because as you know, children like to tear and bite and drool and do lots of different things, so laminating it will help you a lot. But let's dive right in. So when we're looking at kids with autism, and really any individual with autism, when it comes to kind of their learning style or how they learn best, visual supports are really helpful for them, because when we think about learning language, speech specifically, most neurotypical kids learn language just by hearing it. So parents will talk to their child, other family members and friends and people in the community will talk with their child and engage in conversation. So they're hearing a lot of language and speech, and that's how they tend to pick up and learn language, most kids. But that doesn't work for everybody. And so that's where we come in, and to provide other supports that will help them. Visuals are a great way to do that. So if auditory, hearing language and speech is not enough, visuals can often offer another support or aid to help them understand the language and to help them use and express what they want to say to other people as well. So that's particularly true with kids with autism. Now, these strategies can work with any kid that has some language delays, or they're kind of best practices with any child. When I was a special ed teacher, they used to say, if you could teach special ed, you could teach any kid, because really a lot of the tools and tips that we use are good for any child to learn. So let's get started. One of the things, excuse me, I'm just grabbing my things here, that I love to use are things called sentence strips. And you can have, they're called sentence starters, or those are the two main ones that I've heard use, sentence strips or sentence starters. And they're just visuals, pictures, or words, written words if your child is reading, can also be efficient and help them, that will either help with understanding what you're trying to teach them, or it can help them with expressing what they're trying to tell you. And there are infinite number of sentence strips that you can make. It really just depends on what your child is trying to communicate with others, or what you're trying to teach your child. So for example, if you are working with a child on pronouns, so he, she, it, they, words that replace a noun, pronouns, or verbs, or just putting sentences together, and say you're reading a book, or you're looking at some pictures, or you're watching a movie and you want to be able to teach your child to understand that, and have them have the opportunity to communicate that or comment on what they're seeing, you can create something that looks a little bit like this. And it's backwards because it's video, but it just says he is blank ing. So in this situation, we're working on the pronouns, so we did different pictures for he. There's a picture of a boy, she is a picture of a girl, and they is a picture of two people. And then we've got either is or are. So again, this is working more on some grammar type skills as well. And then there's a blank, that's where the child fills in, or you can fill in if you're just teaching them. And then there's an ing at the end to teach them to put that part of speech on at the end. So again, lots of different things can be taught with this particular sentence strip. And again, you can either fill it in, you can write it in if the child is reading, you can have lots of different pictures of different types of actions, and you can put it in. You can point to the book, or you can point to the movie or the iPad or whatever it is that you're watching or commenting on. And if this is too much to have 3 sentences, it doesn't need to have 3, you can just have 1. You can also start working on having the child engage in a back and forth. So if you're asking them, oh, look at the boy, what is he doing? And giving them choices to say, oh, he is sleeping. So again, a really visual, structured way. I even went so far as to put different colors so that they can recognize, okay, is a different color from are. We use different parts of speech for different things, the ing. So again, all just visual things to draw their attention to some of these little things in grammar that kids with autism don't always pick up on. Again, from an auditory part of things, the visuals can help a lot. So that's one to teach grammar, sentence structure, things of that nature. Here's a similar one. It just has, again, the he, she, they. Instead of is, it he has a blank, they have a blank. So again, when it comes to using these sentence starters, one word of caution is that children with autism can often memorize things as a whole phrase. So if you're only working on one specific type of sentence and you work on it over and over and over again, children with autism might memorize it, and then they don't know how to be flexible to use it in a different way or to use different words to describe the same thing. So I like to teach a certain sentence or phrase until they kind of get the hang of it, and then quickly introduce a new one, because if they get too used to the same phrase, especially if it starts with the same words, they can often memorize it, and then they don't know how to be flexible to create their own language or to create new things and new ways to describe things. For instance, a lot of kids will start teaching them I want. So I want would be a great reinforcing thing to teach because it's immediate. They say I want a cookie, they get a cookie. They say I want a car, they get a car. That's very immediate. But then they kind of get stuck on it, and we as adults don't go around all day saying I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. At least I hope we don't. We use lots of different ways to describe, to ask for things. Can I have it? I'd like that. I need it. I want it. I'd like to have it. So you can use different types of sentence starters, but again, using the visuals to help them with that. And I'll show you another one real quick. But using different types of sentence starters so that they learn it and then have a whole repertoire, a whole tool bank of things to draw from. And that can take time, different amounts of time depending on the child, but being sure to not just stick with one thing for a long period of time, because it can get very robotic sounding. So let me grab another. This one's a bit smaller, which if you're taking these sentence strips on the go, the smaller ones might be kind of nice. These you can manipulate a bit more and change them out. So something like this, it says I found, and then there's 2 blanks. And it just is a small strip of paper with little boxes and the Velcro strips on it. And you can pull them on and off and, change them out. So again, we keep just kind of a folder. You can keep an envelope with lots of different phrases on it. We've got things like let's play again, or see. So instead of I found, you can change it out and put I see. When it comes to social games, there's lots of different options. And again, these are just things printed from the internet or from Pinterest. There's a ton of resources out there for you to use, so get creative. It is helpful if you have a color printer and a lamination machine, just to keep it more interesting visually as well. So there's a lot of different choices for this. Things like pick a game, can I play, this is fun. When you're thinking about communication as well, there's lots of different functions. So we don't just want to teach kids how to communicate and how to ask for things, but we want to think of all of the different ways that kids actually communicate. So they comment on things, they protest, they say I don't want something, they need to ask for assistance, and lots of these expressions. So on this one, it has expressions like uh-oh or darn. So think of some expressions that other kids your child's age would use and include those on these sentence strips or visuals. Would be very helpful for them to just get along with their peers, and it sounds more natural. And if your child is primarily nonverbal or not speaking a whole lot, these visuals can serve in a way that can replace the speech that they would be saying. So instead of, some kids may be able to read or recognize the pictures to say, can I play? But maybe your child's not talking yet and they just point to it, or they just take the icon off and give it to you. Either one can also be used. So visuals are very flexible in that way. And those are the visuals. The other thing visuals can help with is expressing some emotions. So when it comes to different emotions, we've got some here. Emotions are a hard thing to get practical with because they're so abstract and vague. So having pictures of different emotions can really help your child out. One, as they're learning to identify emotions in themselves, but also as they are trying to express their emotions to you, especially if they're in a state of high anxiety or if they are not able to communicate that to you. This just has a bunch of different types of emotions with pictures related to them. So things like happy, angry, confused, friendly. And again, if your child is not at this level to handle understanding all of these, you can just start with 1 or 2 or 3 and help them identify it that way. Visuals can also help with things like learning and understanding rules. So here's one that we created for a group of activities that we were doing with a group of boys. And so there's some rules that maybe your child needs, maybe isn't appropriate. Things like keep your feet off the couch, keep your hands clean. We got a lot of nose pickers in that group. Let everyone have a chance to talk. So if you're organizing play dates or, group activities with your child and his friends, all of these things can help your child to understand the rules, but also everybody to understand the rules. So these don't have to just be used with children with autism. They can be used for all kids and be helpful in that way. So visuals are great for that. You don't have to keep repeating yourself over and over as well if you just post it somewhere and point to it as a reminder. And the last thing I wanted to talk about today was token boards. Token boards, or things like if-then boards or first-then boards, can be really helpful when it comes to managing some behaviors and expectations for your child. And again, these can be used for all children of lots of different ages. You can just modify it based on what you're trying to help your child with. If your child has a hard time paying attention or doesn't really want to do certain activities that you want them to do that are helpful for them, such as reading a book, finishing their homework, doing their chores, any of those things. Token boards, this is an example of one. They're just like star charts, or they're also called, can help. You can just do whatever amount of things on there. So if you just want them to do 5 pages of homework or 5 math questions, you can just have 5 or 10 or whatever the case is. And it's just a very visual and concrete way for them to see, okay, if I do 5, then I get to take a break. providing lots of structure and a visual way will help a lot of children, especially children with autism, to know what the expectation is and to know when they're done. All of those things are very helpful. And again, you can use these. I mean, this is, again, just a simple, you could put stickers, you could put something, you know, if your kid likes cars or My Little Pony or whatever the case is, you can use whatever's reinforcing to them. And the break or the reward is totally up to you. It could just be that, okay, we're done, and that's the reward. Or it could be, okay, you get to, you know, play a video game for 10 minutes or whatever the case is. So having token boards are helpful in that way to manage some behaviors as well as some expectations of your child. First then, let me just grab my copy here. This one, it's similar to this, but this was a little different. So first, next, last. Something like this can help with them understanding what the routine is and what the schedule is going to be. So first we're going to eat dinner. Next, we're going to do homework. Last, we get to watch TV. And again, having either words or pictures in those places can help your child to understand what's going on, because making sense of the world around them can be a challenge. So having some visual supports will help them a lot. So I know that was a lot of information this morning, but hopefully some of it was helpful for you. Hope you picked up a new tip or tool. I'd love to hear any tips that you've used with your own children that have been helpful, because we would love to share them with others and just support you. And then I'll also include a link in the comments to our latest article about even more strategies that you can use with your children at home. Have a great weekend. Hope it's a long one for you, and we will see you next Friday. Take care.